Hello. Been out all day. Absolutely freezing. Don't think I'm going to warm up until next year. Can't put the heating on. Haven't had the chimney swept. Can't light the fire. So sofa with the dogs. That's me. Strictly yes. Result. Please like, subscribe, and share. Forgot that. Now, catching up on the papers because I have been out and about all day. And there's an article in the Daily Mail which I thought, ooh. I mean, I'll be totally honest. It didn't tell me much I didn't know, but it might tell you something that you didn't know about Bridget Phillipson. So Bridget Phillipson, as we know, tells us on a regular basis about what a difficult childhood she had. Lots of anecdotal claims from people that grew up with her, near her, around her, saying, it's not quite how we remember it, but recollections may vary, somebody very famous once said. Well, the Daily Mail have said maybe they don't vary quite so much. So their headline is Truth About Next Deputy Leader Bridget Phillipson's Poverty-Stricken Childhood. Mum bought council house in Thatcher's Right to Buy scheme and sold it for 1,000% profit over 30 years later. Now, there's a lot that we hear about Bridget Phillipson and her mum and finance. A lot. Not all of it makes its way to the mainstream media. Some of it will do, I have no doubt. But this is very interesting on many levels because this article goes into great detail about, using a lot of historic stuff that Bridget said, but about her childhood. And in the one hand, we talk a lot about how there was no money, she had to sleep fully clothed, and the windows were rotten. There's a lot of hardship in there, and you can't argue with that. Doesn't matter what you think of her, what I think of her, we can't argue with that. That's what she grew up with. That's what she's telling us. So we have to go with that. But it also says that mum paid for Saturday morning violin classes and drama classes. Now, here is where you're going to go, you can't just pick this to pieces. Yes, I can. The reason I can pick this to pieces is because paying for something like art, violin and drama classes is aspirational. And the reason I say it's aspirational is because that's what Bridget says. Bridget says if you're paying for an education for your child, it's aspirational. You need to pay 20% VAT on it. Her mum didn't have to because this was back when VAT wasn't on education. And before you say, well, it's not all education. Well, actually, if you're going to any of these extracurricular clubs that happen in the independent sector, and a lot of these clubs, particularly music lessons, happen in the independent sector in independent schools, then you will be paying 20% on it. But Bridget didn't have to. Her mum didn't have to because that ridiculous law wasn't imposed then. But Bridget's mum was allowed to be aspirational. She was allowed to spend money on furthering her daughter's chances. There's a photograph of Bridget in her school blazer, which has the school logo on it. And Bridget's looking very proud and very smart. She does. She looks great. She looks like a great little school kid. She looks like she's wearing the very uniform that Bridget's trying to get rid of for our children. So she's saying our kids don't need posh blazers. That's what she calls them, posh blazers. But then there's a photograph of Bridget looking very proud in her posh blazer because she went to a good school. She went to a very good Catholic school. And then she went on to Oxford University. So again, whilst we've got this tale of hardship and woe, we've also got this sort of slightly conflicting story of, well, it wasn't quite such hardship and woe, was it? And we've also got the very strong narrative of her grandparents being very present and very much part of her childhood. And it sounds like her grandparents were absolutely gorgeous, doing reading with her, getting books for her, really encouraging her, really supporting her, really helping her. And if you look at that and then you look at what Bridget says, all the things she didn't have, you're like, well, hang on a minute, you had this wonderful community. You had this very strong family that came from, their roots are enshrined in the terraced houses. That's what so many people, my mum included, who I've talked about before, who grew up on a council estate, will tell you. Those communities supported each other. It takes a village, and that village gets together and supports and drives forward aspiration for their children. But we're not allowed to do that now, unless it's at a state school of Bridget Phillipson's choice, which seems to me massively hypocritical, not just a little bit, it's massively hypocritical, isn't it? And so their mum bought the house in the Right to Buy scheme. She bought it for £9,000 or something. On the market, it would have been like 15 grand. She got it for £5,000 cheaper. And then she sold it in 2023 at a 1,000% profit. So she sold it for just under £100,000. Wow. She did quite well out of Margaret Thatcher's right to buy scheme, didn't she? To the tune of £100,000. Well, is how well she did. But Bridget will say, and she said in the interview, and I probably won't be able to find it now because it's always the way, isn't it, when you're looking for something, that she couldn't align with anything that Margaret Thatcher did. Here we go. She says, Phillipson has made no secret of her dislike for Margaret Thatcher and everything she stood for. She said in an article in 2019, I have never pined for anything associated with Margaret Thatcher. How could I, given the damage she caused? Yet it would seem the Iron Lady may have played a part in giving her family a much needed wealth generating boost that helped turn around their fortunes after all. And they did, didn't they? So her mum got 100 grand out of a house that cost her 9 grand from a scheme that the Conservative Party, Margaret Thatcher, put in place. The right to buy scheme. Angela Rayner benefited from it as well. So many people benefited from it, which is no issue, unless of course you're slagging it off all the time. Then it's a bit of an issue, isn't it? Because it makes you look really mealy-mouthed and have massive double standards. So I think this story, and the reason that I'm talking about this story is I don't think it's going anywhere. I don't think this is the only story we're going to see. I think there's a bit more on this, and I have no doubt it will come out. The other thing that is worth a note, and I mentioned this in my last video about the app that was being created for digital ID if it goes through. That app is the brainchild of Euan Blair. Euan Blair being Tony Blair's son. So the app that will support digital ID is Euan Blair's. He owns it. So who's profiting from digital ID? Whose idea was it to have digital ID? Tony Blair's. Whose son has created the app where this digital ID will be housed? I'll leave you with that little nugget. But I think, again, this is just the beginning.